There are a lot of crazy people in Honkai Star Rail. Some have the opinion that the more valuable an object or person is, the more it should be destroyed, while others believe that fun and laughter supersedes everything else, like logic or morality. Among the many eccentrics that inhabit the universe, there is an individual who wants to turn herself into a god, all to better understand how life itself works. I'm talking, of course, about Ruan Mei. Whether this is actually achievable or not, I don't really know, but suppose for a second that Ruan Mei is able to achieve this. What kind of Aeon would she actually be, and what path would be created as a result of her ascension into godhood? That's what we'll be discussing in this video. Before we talk about this in more detail, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Let me first preface this video with a few things to temper your expectations. While we know Ruan Mei is attempting to either create or turn herself into an Aeon, we don't fully understand her motivations at the current point in the story. The point of this video is just to speculate on what kind of Aeon she would be if she were to succeed. So just keep this in mind as we go through the video. Also, there might be some general spoilers here depending on where you are in the story, but if you're all caught up as of 2.5, then it should be fine. The mechanisms for becoming an Aeon isn't currently fully understood. We know how they can die, but not how they are created. There are, however, quite a few stories and general knowledge around the subject which might hint at how Aeons are created. If we look at the supposed origin stories of Akavili, Lan, or Nanook, each story has elements of a mortal experiencing an intense desire to achieve a specific goal, which then seems to trigger their ascension. Perhaps in the moment that they experience these intense desires, they unknowingly resonate with imaginary energy and end up creating a new path. Nanook, for example, experienced the hellscape of Adlivun and strongly believed existence itself is a mistake and should be destroyed. Akavili, having lived in the remote planet of Pegana, wished for adventure and desired to reach the very edge of the universe. Lan was said to have had their homeworld ravaged by Yaosha and forever swore revenge. Each story seemingly has this similarity and could be a hint at how one could ascend. Alternatively, there could be other ways of achieving godhood. Ruan Mei, for example, was able to clone an emanator of propagation with part of its power supposedly intact. Perhaps she did this by channeling the path's power into a vessel capable of receiving such power, instantly elevating it, much like what Aha did that one time with that worm. Truth is, we don't have a definite answer, but since the Aeons do exist, some obscure method that enables or allows their ascension must exist as well. And if such a method does exist, then for Ruan Mei, it's really just a matter of time. So while we don't truly know the mechanism for ascension, let's say for this instance that Ruan Mei is able to achieve this goal, putting aside the why or the how. If she were to ascend to Aeonhood, what Aeon and path would she actually represent? Again, I'm going to remind you that this is mostly speculation and random theory crafting on my part, but I do have a couple of ideas. First and foremost, given her area of expertise is biology and the fact that she has literally created life, I think she might actually ascend into an Aeon that oversees life itself. Some type of dominion over life or creation of it could be right up her alley. In Ruan Mei's lore, it's mentioned that her research has led to the creation and evolution of many different types of creatures, from flying whales to swimming deers. She has even been said to have brought to life a sentient planet. Most of this comes from her desire to understand the meaning and underlying puzzle of life itself. Of course, as you might recall, we already sort of have an Aeon within this area already, Yaosha, the Aeon of Abundance. However, if we look into Yaosha's lore and the lore for abundance, the path is really more about the proliferation and extension of life. Abundance is about selfless, altruistic, and healing actions which are more aligned with survival and the continuation of life itself rather than the creation of it. Yaosha's own description also mentions that their aim is literally the continual proliferation of life, and Yaosha is more of a nurturer rather than a creator. Most of Yaosha's involvement, such as with the Foxians and the Borosins, have been to ensure they continued to survive. Yaosha wasn't the one that created them. So she's kind of like a gardener, planting seeds and watering plants, and the domain of creation or life itself isn't actually represented by any specific path or Aeon at the moment. So given her background, if Ruan Mei herself were to ascend, she might actually fill this position as an Aeon. I could even see a possible future where Yaosha ends up being absorbed by an Aeon of Life, much like how Enna was absorbed by Shipei. This might even tie in with Jing Liu's Godslayer plan, which was mentioned at the end of 2.5. Perhaps their goal isn't to outright kill the Aeons but to supplant them, and Ruan Mei is needed precisely for this purpose. We know that Ruan Mei has been successful in cloning an emanator of propagation, and Luocha's coffin is filled with the literal body of Tezzeroth. So it might be a win-win situation here between what Jing Liu and Ruan Mei both want. Ruan Mei is given this divine piece of leftover god bug, studies it, ascends and absorbs Yaosha, and Jing Liu gets what she wants as Yaosha is taken out. But I suppose that's a discussion for another video, like this one. Now, as I've mentioned, Ruan Mei's primary drive has mostly been related to the pursuit of knowledge. She wants to understand why life functions or evolves in the way that it does. We can sort of see everything she is doing, even trying to become an Aeon, as part of this pursuit. So if she were to ascend, there is also the possibility that she could occupy an area similar to erudition. The Path of Erudition is one described to be represented by thoughtful, logical, and strategic actions. It's not specifically mentioned to be about science or curiosity. Erudition literally means the knowledge an individual has and not the pursuit of it. Being erudite is the result of pursuing knowledge. While Nous was originally designed to just find answers, Ruan Mei, however, is one of the poster childs for unrestricted intellectual curiosity. Everything she is doing or has done, for better or worse, is all to satiate her hunger to understand. So there is the minute possibility that Ruan Mei may ascend to become an Aeon that represented knowledge, science, or even curiosity in general. Maybe her path would be something akin to just intellectual curiosity or the thirst for knowledge. If this turned out to be true, I don't know if she would supplant and absorb Nous itself, but it's certainly possible. There's also that whole thing with Nous's recent behavior. It's been mentioned that Nous has stopped most of its calculations and right now only focuses on analytics and predictions of the future, which isn't necessarily synonymous with intellectual pursuit. Sure, Nous started off pursuing knowledge, but it seems they are no longer doing that as far as we know. So perhaps Ruan Mei will be the next generation of Aeon representing knowledge as Nous fades into obscurity, having completed its primary goal. Finally, and I've left the more obscure ideas towards the end, she could be an Aeon that represents a more abstract idea. For example, given her determination in finding answers and gaining knowledge, maybe she would turn out to be an Aeon of ambition, or she might also represent hubris or pride. The concept of the 7 deadly sins is present within the existing Aeons, with destruction representing wrath and voracity representing gluttony. So maybe Ruan Mei's pride or hubris in pursuing knowledge without thinking of consequences or repercussions is what she would end up representing. Though I'm not entirely convinced of this personally, as abstract ideas can often be interpreted in many different ways, and the Aeons so far have been pretty straightforward, save for a few like beauty or equilibrium. So personally, a more direct concept for Ruan Mei's supposed path seems more plausible here, at least to me. Whether or not she is able to ascend is really anyone's guess, but before I close out this video, I want to talk just a little bit more on why she wants to do this. The simplest possibility is that this is just out of pure scientific curiosity. Ruan Mei is a member of the Genius Society, and many of their members often have the habit of doing things just to see if they could, rather than have some concrete reason for doing so. Perhaps it's the same with Ruan Mei. Her pursuits are nothing more than just scientific discoveries meant to satiate her curiosity. She wants to peel back the curtain of the universe to fully understand how it works, and maybe in her mind, this can only be done from the perspective of a god. Alternatively, this could also be related to her family and background. We happen to know that she comes from a family of learned researchers, and in her character story, it's even revealed that her grandmother has been observing her till this very day. Perhaps there is more to her story we just aren't aware of, which might act as a personal motivation for her ravenous pursuit of knowledge. Do you think Ruan Mei will actually ascend, and if so, what kind of Aeon would she be? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video even mildly entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.